Mark Davis on Jazz Piano Skills. Mark Davis, man, welcome, buddy.
How you doing, Bob?
I'm doing great, man. I can't believe it. You know, Mark Davis, one of the studs in the jazz piano world. This one of the studs, no doubt, man. You are on the stud list, no doubt about it. So I am thrilled to have you on today, spend some time with you, and thrilled to introduce you to the Jazz Piano Skills listeners. They are in for a treat. So I've been telling them, for weeks, man, that there's going to be this killer interview coming up.
All right, cool.
But I haven't told them who. So you're the mystery guest.
All right.
And so welcome aboard, my friend. I'm glad you're here today.
No, it's my pleasure. This is really, really cool. You're doing this, and piano players love to hang out. I find in my experience, or I like to hang out with piano players. I'll at least put it that way. But in my experience, I think all musicians like to hang out with each other, but I think especially piano players like to get together and exchange ideas and talk.
Yeah, it's great fun, right? I've said it many times. In fact, I've said it many times on the podcast that I really enjoyed my academic days. At North Texas. It was a great jazz education, but I always say I learned more in the hallways than I did in the classroom, just hanging out with the musicians and hanging out with everybody and talking jazz. So I totally get it.
Yeah, that's important.
So, hey, listen, before we get into all your professional accolades and what you're doing in the professional world, I want to start, Mark. I want to start at the beginning, man. I want you to take some time right now, kind of fill us in on your childhood, how you got into music, siblings, if they're in the music. Just kind of give us a rundown of your life story. So, my friend, the microphone is yours.
All right. Well, I am from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for those who don't know where Milwaukee is. And we're about 90 miles north of Chicago. I know in some parts of the world, or certainly in the country even, people are wondering where certain places are. But Milwaukee is home for me, and I was born here. And I started playing the piano in third grade. That was the first instrument I played. And later I did some classical cello. But you started in third grade, and I kind of took to improvising right away. I did the traditional piano and classical piano, but I always enjoyed improvising, even from the start, just making stuff up and creating some things, doing a little composing and things like that. So, I started to get into jazz in middle school, 7th grade.
Yeah.
And just with school, like playing with some, little jazz band at the school. And
well, that's pretty cool. I mean, to be in elementary school and in Milwaukee, nothing against Milwaukee. I love Milwaukee, man. But I grew up in Rock Island, Illinois, right? So finding jazz teachers, it's not necessarily, it's not easy, right? So
it's interesting. I was not in a musical family per se. My parents didn't really play music, although they loved music. My dad ran, he was actually a Lutheran minister.
Okay.
And he ran a coffee house that started in the 1960s. And there was a lot of, activism and peace marches and things like that were going on at the time. And a lot of music, a lot of folk music, but also some jazz. So I sort of grew up in that environment, hearing a lot of musicians would come over to the house. And a lot of times it would be guitar players or folk musicians coming from from Milwaukee or maybe coming from Chicago and different places. So I think that certainly had an influence on me. And my parents loved the arts. We always went to a lot of art museums and things of that nature and took art classes. In fact, that was really my first love, was visual art. So all during grade school and up through high school. And then, in fact, through college, I pursued visual art. And that's what my degree is in drawing and painting.
No kidding.
And that's
wow.
Going just a little bit ahead, but I was real into that in grade school and in high school, but also into music. And my brother played violin, and then he got into playing guitar and keyboards, and we had groups and things that we would put together in high school.
Yeah.
And it was it was a great outlet. And I think it was I just continued to get interested in it. And when I was a sophomore in high school, there was a guitar player that lived down the street from me who said, if you're interested in jazz, you really ought to study with this guy. He's a piano player in town. You really should get with him because he's really great and you could learn a lot from him. And so I did that. I got a hold of him and I started studying with him. He became a great friend of mine. That's David Hazeltine, who is a tremendous pianist. Some people will be familiar with his name or his work that are listening to this, or perhaps not. But they can check him out. He's from Milwaukee and of course was living in Milwaukee at that time. And it was during the 1980s when I was studying with him in the mid 80s. And then he moved to New York in 1992 and he's been there ever since. He's done a whole lot of recording and
wow,
performing.
wow.
So, but he had a huge influence on me. And Dave was really steeped, as a lot of the musicians, I think, in Milwaukee, in like kind of a bebop tradition,
Right.
heavily influenced by. Even though I mean, in retrospect, I kind of feel we were just in a little bit of a bubble in terms of. It was still like when I came up, it was really a lot about Charlie Parker and
Right.
Bud Powell and Barry Harris.
Right.
And
Right.
I was a little, because it was pre-internet, I was kind of unaware of some of the more current trends that were going on, I think, at the time. Although I think the first record I bought was Bitches Brew.
Right.
In seventh grade, I'm like, what is this? I don't like this. I mean, later I like it. I mean, now I like it. But at the time, I had no idea what was going on in it.
Yeah,
I knew Miles Davis. Everybody said Miles Davis. He's the main guy,
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
So that was the first record I remember getting. Although, really, it was going to the public library and taking out vinyl records. I would get Oscar Peterson and Errol Garner in particular.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
And I would put those records on. I'm going back to more like, I'd say like more like 8th and 9th grade. I just put those records on. And I loved them. I had no idea anything about any of the tunes, but I would try and improvise along. I just try and play along with it, and not note for note. I wasn't at the level of being able to really transcribe it or anything like that. I was just hearing it, trying to get in there and play a little bit. So it was later that I started trying to figure out what is this? What am I hearing?
Yeah, that's what we did back then, though, right? That's what we did.
Yeah.
I mean, we put the album on, and we would try to hang the best we could, right? Just trying to make stuff up that sounded like it fit,
Yeah, you couldn't, not like now where you can slow it down and stop it and pause and
oh my gosh,
put it under a microscope, which is cool, but it's I guess that's another topic to talk about later. But but at that point, like you say, you just try and figure it out. So, but David was a huge influence on me. My father passed away when I was a junior in high school, and Dave and I even got closer at that time.
All right.
He'd take me to record stores and we'd hang out, and so big influence. But when it came time to go to college, I decided, started thinking, I could make a career maybe in music, but was also very interested in visual art. And at the time,
you were thinking, I could maybe make a career
which is
in music,
worse.
but I think I got a better shot at visual arts.
Yeah, kind of. So I did that. I went to Skidmore College. It's in upstate New York, Saratoga Springs, and I did.
So how did you pick that? How'd you get there? How'd you land there?
I wanted to go away somewhere, and there were just some good opportunities there to where great art department and
okay.
So I really went for the visual art department, but I did a lot of practicing there. I mean, I just I'd get everything done during the day, and then at 5 o'clock or maybe 6 o'clock, I'd go to the practice room, and I'd stay in there till 1 o'clock.
Yeah, right.
And there were some other musicians there that were great. There was a saxophone player, Mark Vinci, who's a great alto saxophone player, who now teaches at Juilliard, I believe, and he and I would play a lot. We'd play until like one of us started nodding off. He was teaching me, but he was just a little bit older than me.
So what years was this?
So I graduated in high school in '87, and then I was in college. Graduated. I did it in 3 years because I did some summer and took some extra, overload stuff and whatnot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I graduated in 90.
Yeah.
And then at that point, I had the art degree. I wasn't really that interested in, at that point, although I'm more interested now, like design or graphic design, things like that, which might be a little more practical to like try and work as instead of just being like a fine artist. So it's kind of like be a fine artist or be a jazz musician. So then it became the point where, like, I think it could be a little easier to be a jazz musician.
You never thought you'd say that, did you?
Right. And we know how this goes. Sometimes it's not necessarily like a decision you make one day,
Right.
Because we've all had students that say, "Hey, should I go into music?" Or, and it wasn't like that for me. It wasn't like, one day I decided this is what I'm going to do. But I moved back here in 90, and then it started playing a lot, and then and teaching just on my own, like just private lessons.
Yeah.
And then, I was going to describe a little bit like the scene in Milwaukee, because again, like you say, people are probably unfamiliar with the Milwaukee jazz scene.
Yeah, right.
Or a lot of people are, unless they're in this vicinity.
Well,
and,
because you don't say jazz and you don't immediately think Milwaukee.
I do. No.
Well, of course.
No, you don't. I mean, most people don't. I'll give you that.
Right. Right.
But it was a really interesting scene, and Milwaukee has a close proximity to Chicago, like you say. So
right.
I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Through the decades, we've always had Louis Armstrong, Billie Holiday, Duke Ellington, all these people, Miles Davis, passing through Milwaukee.
Right.
But that's long before my time.
Right. Right.
But there is that tradition of or that history. But more in terms of the history I came up in, which is more like, starting with, I'm going to talk more about the 70s and 80s. There were some tremendous players who came here from Indianapolis. And so I don't think purely by coincidence, but there were several. There was Melvin Rhine, who was the organist who people might know. He was on all those early Wes Montgomery recordings. Mm-hmm. That was Mel Rhine. And then he kind of, he moved to Madison, Wisconsin, then he moved to Milwaukee sometime, I don't know the exact year, but, generally in the early 70s, and was here until, I kind of lose track, but, he was someone we would go hear a lot, on B3 organ, and then also hear him on piano. And he sort of, people thought he was like, had disappeared or something. He had been playing in Milwaukee for many years. And then he started recording on that Crisscross label. Actually, Brian Lynch kind of, I think, brought him kind of back into the public eye. Brian Lynch is a trumpet player who's from Milwaukee, who's a good friend of mine, and I work with him a lot here in Milwaukee and in Chicago. And Brian is, for those who don't know, is a great trumpeter. He was part of Horace Silver's band and also in Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers in the last group. That was back like when Jeff Keezer was in the band.
Yeah.
Who's also from Wisconsin, actually. He's from northern Wisconsin, Eau Claire.
Wow.
And but anyways, but just the scene at that point, Melvin was an important player. And I'm talking now kind of about some of the older players. Like when I was coming up in the 80s, there were players who were in there. At the time, they seemed old, but now I realize they were young because I'm older than they were. But they were probably at that point generally in their 50s,
Right.
But they seemed like the old cats in town, and they were.
Right.
Then so it was Melvin Rhine and Buddy Montgomery, the great pianist and vibraphone player, who was the younger brother of Wes Montgomery, had just moved. He moved out of Milwaukee in the early 80s. And so he had a tremendous influence on the scene here. He lived here through the 1970s, and so he's another Indianapolis guy.
Okay.
So Killer Ray Appleton also lived here. He was a drummer from Indianapolis who was worked with Freddie Hubbard. And
see, I would have never thought this, right? This is fascinating.
Yeah, there's a lot of history. There's a lot of history and some really deep players. Then there were some guys that no one has heard about other than, our people around here. Berkeley Fudge. Berkeley Fudge was a tenor saxophone player, incredible unique player. He's still around. He suffered a
Right.
stroke a few years ago. He's not playing, but huge influence on the scene. I did hundreds, if not thousands, of gigs with Berkeley, and he's in his late 80s now. And then the other sort of towering figure of the Milwaukee scene that had a big influence on me was Manti Ellis, who is a guitarist who's still performing. He's in his early 90s now.
Wow.
And another, Milwaukee Titan.
Right.
That didn't get a lot of exposure outside of the area here, but he had a tremendous influence. But he was, came up with, there were a number of players that grew up here, like Willie Pickens, who was a piano player who worked in Chicago for many years and recently passed away. Bunky Green, who alto saxophone player.
Yeah, right.
They all came up at the same time, sort of in the 1950s, as kids here in Milwaukee. Bunky Green, Frank Morgan, the alto saxophone player.
Yeah.
So they were all part of this scene here, and
so Milwaukee was a pretty rich jazz scene then that you had at your disposal.
Yeah, it's kind of a deep thing, and
wow.
So that was early 90s. That was all happening, and it was kind of like a true jazz scene, I'd say, like, in every sense of the word, whatever that might mean to anybody, in terms of, what someone might think about what a jazz musician's life is. That's what these guys were, the real deal cats. And
right.
And it wasn't necessarily an academically based kind of situation where sometimes, and I don't think it's a bad thing, but sometimes now jazz scenes center around an academic kind of setting.
Right.
But it was just an organic thing. It was David Hazeltine, back to David, my mentor, moved to New York in 1992, and he called me like about 11 p.m. when I said, "Let's go." So we got in the car and we drove, through the night. It was just kind of, like one of those kind of things.
Oh,
and then
those are the good old days, man. Those are
I remember we were looking for Center Street in New York, and Dave's looking. I'm like, it's middle of the night. I'm like, Dave, you might want to take your sunglasses off. Anyways, so Dave moved out there. I ended up taking his teaching position at a school here that had been a college and had become a community music school called the Wisconsin Conservatory of Music. And I was the chair of that program from 1992 until 2019. So it was about 27 years. And previously it had been a college program. So like Brian Lynch and Dave Hazeltine, Gerald Cannon, a great bass player who people know, who he worked with Roy Hargrove in his band for many years, and also with McCoy Tyner and Elvin Jones for many years. Great bass player. A whole number of great players came out of that program when it was college, and Manti Ellis was leading that along, and Berkeley was teaching there as well. One more Indianapolis guy I got to mention is Haddish Alexander. These great names. Haddish was also involved over there just a little bit early on, but he was another great Milwaukee figure, a tenor saxophone player who came out of Indianapolis and had grown up with Miles in St. Louis, and then was real close to Wes.
Is that school still going?
It became a community music school, and then so when I was there, we were focused more on high school programming, like teaching high school kids, and I developed the whole high school aspect of it. We had a great program, and we've subsequently, and when I say we, I'm talking about most of the faculty and also some board members and supporters, decided to leave and form a new organization. That's when we formed the Milwaukee Jazz Institute, which was in 2019. So it's really this organization that I co-founded with my wife, Erin, is sort of the extension of this whole history of all these players I'm talking about, and the history of what went on in Milwaukee and has gone on and continues to go on, but also the educational thread that started back then with Manti. And we've just decided it's important for us now to have an organization, a nonprofit, that focuses solely on this art form. And so we can really try and
That's
raise the opportunities.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So then what goes on? Talk a little bit more about the Milwaukee Jazz Institute.
Yeah.
It's a nonprofit. So what goes on there?
Yeah, clinking the piano here. Sorry. The Milwaukee Jazz Institute, like I said, we formed it in 2019, November of 2019. Everybody's thinking, okay, what was happening in 2019? Well, we formed it, and we all know what happened. We got our nonprofit status. We applied, I believe, in January, thinking this would probably take 6 months. In 2 weeks, we had our nonprofit status, and boom, we were elated, like, okay, we're on the road here.
Yeah.
At the same time, late January of 2020, just to get into a little personal stuff, I had a brain seizure in the middle of the night.
Oh my gosh!
Completely, like, out of the blue, unexpectedly. So that
was
like
warning.
Late January. I had no headaches, no health issues that contributed. Wow. It was just a complete random thing.
Wow.
So we were sort of in the midst of this. I had left this organization I'd been with for 27 years, which was a big deal for me, and forming this new organization, which was a big deal for us. And then I had this brain seizure, which was just like, I woke up in the ambulance and like I had no idea what had happened, wow. And ended up having brain surgery early March of 2020. So I'm just kind of painting the picture of what we were going through when we were forming this organization, because I hadn't had the surgery yet, but we found out we had the nonprofit status. We were really excited. We had a festival planned for 300 students. I did the surgery. It was, I don't know how much, I don't want to get into too much detail, but I had the surgery in the evening on a Monday night. They sent me home. It was full-fledged brain surgery. I mean, they go into your skull. I mean, I don't want to get gruesome, or we have to have a parental warning here or something. But at 1 p.m. the next day, they sent me home. I'm like, what the heck? I mean, I was, and so I went home. I practiced countdown, on the piano. I said, I better get my brain going. It's like, make sure I still have all my faculties.
Oh my gosh.
And I mean, the fortunate thing is that, I had no, the situation that had caused this there was no, nothing was cancerous, nothing was a tumor.
Good.
It was
good.
Everything was fine. The only thing that I regret is I didn't tell people that I now only function at about 75%, because then, if I forget to show up somewhere, or, don't take the trash out, you've got a good excuse, right? But I made that mistake, but I am at 100%. But anyways, but so we, funny, we got through that. I'm like, wow, I made it through this surgery. Now we can get going with the Milwaukee Jazz Institute, and then I had been so preoccupied with anything. I had no idea that this whole pandemic was coming.
Right.
Of course the world shut down like a week later. So it was a challenging time. It was a weird time.
No doubt.
We were really enthused by, just about starting this organization. We went like totally full steam ahead. We just did a whole ton of online programming. We did over 100 workshops that year, and
wow,
it was an interesting way. It was kind of an interesting way for us to get started, because I mean, as you probably experienced when you start going online, you start getting people tuning in from all over the place, and so it was interesting. But now, like, just to explain a little bit about the Milwaukee Jazz Institute, now that we're able to kind of fully realize what it is we want to do, and not have some of the restrictions of that COVID imposed. We teach and we perform. So our mission is to promote and preserve and push this music forward, and by doing that. So we teach youth and adults. So we have youth ensembles and classes that we teach weekly. And we also have adult ensembles. So it's not age specific. I mean, the groups are generally either youth or adult, although there's a few that are a little mixed. So we have 4 youth ensembles, 4 adult ensembles. One of those is a mini big band, like a 6-horn big
Oh, wow.
band, and
Wow. Fantastic.
so those occur weekly, and we partner with a place called the Jazz Gallery Center for the Arts, which is in Milwaukee. Which, I mean, that was a major jazz club here in Milwaukee during the late 70s, early 80s. Dexter Gordon, Art Blakey, Sarah Vaughan, Chet Baker, all these great people performed there at that time. Again, that proximity to Chicago, it was part of the circuit.
Yeah.
Chicago,
Right.
Milwaukee, Minneapolis.
Right.
And so it's great to be in that setting. The students, get to rehearse right where, Jimmy Smith was plugging in his B3,
Golly.
and
Oh,
it's
gosh.
cool.
That's cool. That's very cool.
McCoy Tyner, Anyways,
very cool.
so we teach. We have online courses. I have some jazz theory sequences that I teach 4 levels. We have a jazz piano class. We have a bassline class. These are online courses, and then we do a lot of in-person things. Though we have what we call our jazz circle, which are free offerings to the public. So we do a monthly jam session.
Wow.
And we always get a great turnout. We do online classes, and then we do a summer jazz camp, a day camp for high school kids, youth, and we do a International Jazz Day celebration, which was really big last year. And then we do a educational jazz festival in the spring.
It's fantastic.
Where we invite high school bands to come. And
so I'm assuming for all of us not living in the Milwaukee area, they're at the web. We can go to the website and we can we can enroll in that. We can enroll in. If I wanted to enroll in one of the classes, I certainly could.
I'd encourage people to do it. I mean, our performances are in person, but they can check out some of this educational stuff. Milwaukee Jazz Institute.org. But performing is our other big aspect. So we're partnering with different venues in the Milwaukee area and presenting concerts monthly. So we do it. There's a smaller jazz club where we either use local musicians or people passing through town. Carl Allen is from Milwaukee. He's a great drummer. He just performed there a few months ago. Camille Thurman, great saxophonist, vocalist, was there. But great Chicago people come up, and great Milwaukee players play through it with our performances.
So how's the attendance? People turning out, people coming to check out jazz?
It's good. I mean, my belief about all of this is it's not enough just to put on a concert. It's not enough just to say, hey, I'm a player, I'm just going to go out and try and get gigs. I really believe in trying to develop audiences. And so that's a big part of what we are trying to do is increase visibility, increase audiences, that create more diversity in our audiences. And so we continue to build our mailing list, email list. We really work at trying to promote a lot, because that's kind of like what it's about. If you really believe in something, and you still have to market it. And so, but it's great. No, we get great turnout. Sometimes I get frustrated because you have something great and you're like, yeah, I wish more people would come out to this, But you're competing against everything in the world, including Netflix and everything.
That's right.
There's great TV shows. I mean, they're great.
Right. Yeah, you absolutely are.
Yeah.
Well, it's fantastic, man. I'm going to check it out. I want all the listeners to check it out. And man, I think it's great that you have offerings there that, like I said, folks like us that live outside the Milwaukee area, that we could log in and take part and participate in those classes as well. That's
absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I wanted you to talk about, obviously you're a player. I mean, big time player. You sound fantastic. So somewhere along the way, you found a passion, an interest in teaching and in education. How did that come about? How did that drive, that interest in becoming an educator, how did that happen?
Right. I think sometimes it's hard to pinpoint a moment, of course, but
right.
Sometimes there is a moment. I don't think it was a moment, but along with what I'm saying, I believe that all musicians should be involved in trying to spread the message of this music, or whatever it is they're into. And not in a self-serving way, but just trying to share it with other people and pass it along. because I think that we, if we want to have the audiences and the opportunities that we all want for ourselves and for everyone else, it does take work. And so I feel there's an obligation to be involved with that. But I will say Barry Harris was a primary, David Hazeltine as well, but Barry Harris was a prime influence on me. And I had a chance to get to know him quite well in the mid 90s. He did a residency here in Milwaukee where he was here for 4 weeks. And so it was 4 separate weeks, but I had a chance to be by his side, glued there for that entire duration.
Oh,
and everybody who knows Barry or has seen videos of Barry know, like, this is a guy who he doesn't decide to teach. He's an incredible player, of course, but he just conveys, or he knowledge. I mean, he just, it spews out of him, and he wants to show people music and bring that into people's lives. So he was a big influence on me, and continues to be.
Right.
So I would say he was the primary influence, and he was also, David taught partially, based on Barry's sort of approach to teaching, and so I kind of came up with that, and then getting to know Barry and working, studying with him, I became sort of a disciple of him, and I teach, my approach that's heavily influenced by that. In fact, like, my books are based on those experiences to a large degree, but they're also, based on 30 years of teaching, and we all develop our approaches of how we like to present things.
Right.
And,
right. Exactly. Yeah. I was just going to say, I saw on your website, the picture of Barry Harris with your books, with your book. So I thought that was awesome. So let's go there. Let's go there. I mean, it's fascinating, right? You have 2 jazz books out. Maybe at least I know of.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold them up just for the heck of it. This one's a little dog-eared because I sometimes use this with students. But this is, now it says book 1 because this was the first one when it came out.
Hal Leonard Publisher, right? Yeah.
Yeah, this is Hal Leonard Jazz Piano Method. I wrote this book, or published it, in 2015, and then 4 years later, I came out with a volume 2, which doesn't sell as well. But I'm so happy with this book. I wish more people would have access to it, or would check it out. But all in all,
it doesn't have to sell well. Your first one sold over 27,000 copies, so book
these
2
collectively they've sold 27,000. I think the majority of those are book 1. Yeah.
Wow.
And then recently, I mean, maybe you saw this too.
Gosh.
Like, this guy emailed me. He said, I won't even attempt a bad French accent because I can't do it. But imagine I'm talking with a French accent. He said, I bought your book. And I'm wondering, should I get the English? Or no, I want to buy your book, but do you recommend the English version, or how is the French translation? And I emailed him back. I said, I'm sorry, I don't think there is a French translation. He said, yeah, there is. So I talked to a friend of mine at Hal Leonard, and he investigated. And sure enough, they have translated the book. This one, this one's in Dutch. This one.
That's awesome.
This one's here's the French one.
Oh my gosh!
And frankly, I don't know how the translations are. I hope they're good, but I have no way of knowing until I actually emailed back and said, "Let me know." This is German, but
wow.
I'd love to get these, in Spanish or also Japanese.
Yeah,
because I get requests from people. In fact, I work with some students from Guatemala, and a group of students, and it'd be great to get it in Spanish because
we truly an international jazz educator, Mark.
I guess so.
Yeah, right.
I guess so.
No doubt.
Well, I have connected with go ahead.
We'll talk about the books a little bit. Like,
the
approach that you've taken them, they're excellent. I mean, I've looked at both books. They're laid out incredibly well. So talk a little bit about your approach to these books and the sequential order of the content that you decided upon.
Yeah. So, the the background on the books is that I started working on these a long time ago. Like, because students would say to me, as they've probably said to you, hey, what book? Like somebody I'm teaching, what book should I get? Because I like the lessons, but I'd like to be able to read a book or something during the week.
Right.
Right. And nothing against all the great books that are out there, because there's been great books, through the years.
Right.
And
right.
But frankly, for me, like as a teacher, there was just never quite the right book that, again, like the Mark Levine books, they're excellent. I learned stuff from those books. They're great. I still, would recommend them. But with my students, they would say, well, I got this, might have been that book or some other book. And I was confused as soon as I got to chapter 2. It's like, I didn't know, I don't know what's, what Phrygian chords are, like, because they don't even know how to play a blues yet,
right.
So it just occurred to me, I really want to put something that's sequential and a method together, because I was already doing it in my teaching and I just wanted to document it. So I approached Hal Leonard about it, and I said, hey, I've got this great idea. I want to call this the jazz piano method, and it would be, I explained what my idea was, and they said, no, we're not interested.
Got this great idea. No.
Yeah. Now, I was doing work for them. I've recorded a whole lot for them. I mean, I've lost track of how many recordings I've done for them, because Hal Leonard happens to be based in Milwaukee, and Hal Leonard is now the largest print music publisher in the world. They're based here in Milwaukee, and so I do a lot of recording for them, like for big band tracks or play-alongs. We recorded the real books. We did backing tracks. We recorded. There's some books like this, like multi-track books, and so I had a relationship with them. And then it was like 6 months later, they called and they said, hey, we're thinking about, we'd like to have a jazz piano method book. Would you be interested in writing it?
You're going like, oh, wow, geez. I
great idea. No, it was good that I put it out there.
You should have said no.
Yeah, I don't think so. I kind of busy now.
Yeah, right.
Anyways, no,
you had your chance.
I mean, this book is not, it's like 100 pages. Like, how big is it? It's 96 pages. It's not, it's not this thick.
Right.
Here's what I wanted to do with this book. And I feel like I'm very proud or happy with how the books came out. Because
you should be.
I feel like I succeeded with what I was trying to do, which is create something where someone could start on page 1 and they would work through it sequentially, and they would understand everything that's going on. Everything would be clear, and that it wouldn't be so much writing about it that they glaze over, that there'd be musical examples. So anyways, the other thing that I wanted is that, that you would flip open any page and you'd play something and you say, hey, I like how that sounds.
Right.
Because, there are some books out there, and I'm not saying all books, but there are some books where I've looked at and like, I open it up, I'm like, well, I don't even like this. Why would I want to try and work through this book when it doesn't even sound like something I'd want to play? So it was a goal of mine to have, like, have real content, like real music, not just be, some kind of theoretical exercises.
Correct.
Again, I don't mean to mean to disparage anything, but sometimes I see stuff on Instagram where it's this warm up or this exercise, or like, that's cool. It sounds cool, but I'm not going to go to a gig and play a warm up exercise. It's got to be music.
Right.
So my point is that I wanted it to be like, hey, this is stuff we're gonna cut to it. Now, in terms of the organization, I don't know how detailed we want to get. I mean, we're getting detailed a lot about stuff, but here, I guess my approach, just a fundamental thing that I find with jazz piano, like from right off the bat, I think all jazz piano instructors encounter is, can you reach a 10th? That's like, it's like what I do with the book is I start with what I would describe as shell voicings.
Yeah.
Meaning like root third seventh or root seventh third, which requires a 10th interval. So I have people break it because certainly a lot of students I work with can't reach a 10th.
Correct.
But I have them start that way. No rootless voicings. Any of that kind of stuff that comes later. I want people to be able to play solo piano. I want people
Correct.
to play roots and not get involved with playing extensions in their left hand initially. So
Right.
that's kind of the approach. It's in terms of the content melodically, um, it's I deal with with what we might describe as bebop scales, and it's definitely heavily influenced by Barry Harris's approach to
Right.
conveying improvisation. So
Yeah.
I do with dominant and major and altered dominant, and then it's really book two that gets more into like melodic minor scale,
Yeah. Right. Right.
like applying that to different chord types, also like more modern and modal styles and things like that. But
Yeah.
what I've tried to do is just you make it clear. There's a description. There's something you can, there's specific things that you can practice and a specific instruction on what you should do to practice it.
Yeah.
So
Oh
I
yeah.
find and my students, I mean, I've had great success. I mean, I have students work through these and they come out playing great.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know, you know.
Yeah.
Dan Nimmer was a young student of mine. He's the pianist with Wynton Marsalis. And so he's one of the
Great player.
students I work with that
Yeah. Great
where I
player.
developed this technique. It's like how I would take someone through something.
Yeah.
But he plays incredibly.
Yeah. So is he from Milwaukee as well?
Yeah, he's from Milwaukee as well. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. He's a great player. So,
Wonderful.
yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious when he came to you, was you starting him from scratch, or did he already come to you knowing jazz? What was his background when he got with
When
you?
he came to me, I think he was in 7th grade. And I said, he played a little bit of drums too.
Oh yeah.
And
Good.
I said, I'm going to put you on drums because piano wasn't happening.
And if drums don't work out, we're going tuba.
Then we started doing lessons. No, when I first met him, I think I had him playing drums. I wonder if he even remembers that. It's funny. But anyways, no, he was very young. But, we've probably, many of us have had that experience where you have a student where it's just like, each week. And I've had a lot of great students, even really recently, where I'll suggest they work on something. And then the next week they do it. And I'm thinking like, I wasn't really serious.
Yeah. Go transcribe an Oscar solo. They come back with it all.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. No,
Man.
I consider myself lucky to have all these great students because it's almost a cliche, but it's a true one. You learn so much through teaching.
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt. Yeah, it's a cliche.
And you also get a lot of inspiration.
Yeah,
you get a lot of inspiration. Yeah,
no question about it. Yeah, I'm always, in my experience as an educator over the past 30 years, I'm literally thrilled with how many adults are into and wanting to play piano and jazz piano specifically. It's very encouraging. Very encouraging.
Yeah.
So it's not just this.
I've had
it's just not the 7th grader.
No. And I think I'm sure you're probably the same. I mean, I've had every kind of student. I've had students start in their 80s.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then they get hard on themselves. And I say, hey, look, you've only been playing a year. If you were 6, you'd probably be on the Tonight Show by now. You're playing good. I mean, adults are just hard on themselves.
They're
hard on themselves.
No question about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no question about it. And not only are they hard on themselves, but they work incredibly hard. It's amazing. I tell many of my adult students that I work with, I go, look, man, you work harder than a lot of guys that were majoring in music in college that I went through school with. They're very serious. They're very serious about it.
I know. I think because I do a little bit teaching at a college, and I have over the years, but primarily my teaching is just people who either privately or with the Milwaukee Jazz Institute classes. But it's always people that just want to work on it. So I've never had to tell a student, you need to practice more.
Yeah, right.
Because it's I just haven't had to. I mean, really, in general.
Yeah,
because,
right.
Well, they wouldn't be coming to me if they didn't want to do this.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
They do what they can.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have some students who are like really high powered, high level corporate executives too,
Right.
who play.
Right.
And
Right.
then I have students who are at another end of the economic spectrum. But my
Right.
point is that it's a great outlet for people who might not make it their
Mm.
career.
Yeah.
Just to be involved with this. It's so for someone who's in a different line of work. Sometimes it's just to deal with something so
Yeah.
abstract and beautiful
Yeah. Right.
is what
Yeah.
we're trying to create is beauty through something that's very abstract, and it's
Yeah.
not about
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. I teach. It's funny. I teach several seniors. Folks in their 80s that will come in for lessons,
uh-huh.
and uh, they're equally drawn to not just the creative side of music, the creative side of jazz, but they're equally drawn to the intellectual side,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
The thought process that you have to go through to
yeah,
understand the art form, right? And so
yeah.
I always remind them at the end of every lesson when they walk out, I always go, "Hey, man." I said, "This is a hell of a lot hipper than a crossword puzzle that your buddies are
Exactly.
working."
No, yeah,
Right?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
No, you're
so
working your brain in the same way, or maybe a different
that's,
way, but it's
yeah,
working your brain.
that's right.
And
No,
the end result doesn't have to be that I'm going to be on a concert stage.
correct. 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
In fact,
100%.
I think for myself personally, I mean, as much as I love performing and like just creating music, I love that aspect of this music. It's just figuring things out,
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
making
Right.
little
Yeah.
discoveries, about maybe what I
Yeah.
think someone was thinking about when they played.
Yeah. There's a great Bill Evans quote, and I'm paraphrasing it now.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to probably butcher, but I was so drawn to it when I first read it. He said, maybe it's a peculiarity of mine, especially being an entertainer. But he said, I'd much rather play alone by myself. Because I think what
Yeah,
he was just getting at is that because now he can just bathe in the whole process, the
yeah,
intellectual process, the
yeah,
music itself, not trying to impress anybody, not
right,
trying to,
yeah,
I hope they're digging this,
right,
whatever.
right, yeah,
He could actually just be alone with his thoughts and with the music. And
yeah,
you can relate to that. I mean,
yeah, totally,
I'm sure some of the best times that
totally,
you've enjoyed playing is by yourself sitting there at home at midnight and playing some
totally,
tunes and
yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
or we have situations where we're playing and someone says, "Oh, I'm sorry, it doesn't seem like there's anyone listening." Like, well, musicians are we're listening to each other. But I know what you
Right.
mean.
Well,
Yeah,
and what I'm saying, and I tried to communicate that. I try to stress that to the adult students that I work with. That look, it's not about going to play a gig. It's
yeah,
actually about what you're going to experience through the study of this art form, just playing in
yeah,
your home, just playing in
yeah,
your home.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
totally.
know, yeah,
Yeah, and those are the players that I tend to be drawn to. I mean, I think all the great players are players that are not concerned with ego, but you know,
correct,
but I
correct.
think there's certain players that are even, I put like a Hank Jones,
Mm,
Barry Harris, Bill Evans, um, Monk. I mean, in a category of like, hey, I'm not trying to impress anybody. I'm trying to just be true to the music, and
right,
play something of deep of depth.
right,
But
right,
not about flash or about
right, right.
trying to impress somebody. And I do kind of wonder. I don't know how. I don't know how Instagram, for example, just to say pick a social media platform, but it could be any of them. How will that affect the music? Because
Yeah,
you know, now there is a tendency to need to make a splash to get somebody's attention. You got a second or
right.
two to like get someone to tune in, and
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
You
it,
know,
it
along those lines, another great, Dave McKennon's one of my favorite all
oh yeah,
time players, right? I just
hmm
love McKennon's playing. Because it always sounds like he's got three hands instead of two. I don't know how,
amazing. I only got to hear
yeah,
him once, like live, but he came played up at the hotel where I play at. They had the top floor had a jazz series for a while. Incredible
How,
player.
how was it hearing him live, man? Was it just unbelievable?
It was beautiful. I mean,
Yeah.
those are those experiences where I wish I could go back in time and hear him again.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You know,
Right. So
yeah.
he was being interviewed one time, and the person interviewing kept referring to him as a jazz musician, jazz
Uh-huh.
pianist, jazz musician, and he finally stopped the person in the interview and he said, "Will you stop calling me that?" And 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 the interviewer said, what should I call you?" And
Uh-huh.
and, and McKenna said, "This is what I love." He said, "I'm
Yeah.
a song player.
Oh, okay.
I I'm a song player." So
Cool. Yeah,
what's
yeah.
such great humility, right? And that the emphasis is he wanted the emphasis to be placed on the song, on the
That's
song.
interesting.
Yeah,
Well, that and
yeah,
there are, that's something that I've become more like intrigued with is, I mean, I've always loved playing standards, but
yes,
I've got more into like really like learning the tune, like the way it was written. And I mean,
yeah,
you can't see on here, but I have a big stack of sheet music here on the piano of the old sheet music.
yeah,
If I don't have, I try and find it and really like try. I mean, that's something I've gotten into more recently. It's just like, I used to think like, oh, well, jazz musicians have like changed the song. I should play it just the way jazz musicians play it, which I might, but I always, now I've realized I want to know how the tune was written. And I think Dave McKenna is one of those players, like they know the
yeah,
true song, they
yeah,
really know the
right,
tune.
yeah. Because see,
They
I get
really
asked
know.
that. I get asked that a lot as well. Like somebody will say, "Well, what's the original melody that Gershwin wrote?" And I'm going like, and I'm sad to say, a lot of times I go, you know what,
I
man, I'd
know.
have to go back and study that because
I
I've
know.
learned it
Cause
from I've learned it from a secondary source. So
right, right.
who learned it from a secondary source? Who learned it from a secondary source? So
Yeah. Yeah.
so I get totally what you're saying.
And that's probably what he's thinking about. And I feel like Hank Jones, I think Bill Evans was someone too, like they were real true to the original tunes. Even though we
Yeah,
think like, well, Bill Evans, didn't he reharmonize everything? But or Hank. I mean, they did some of that, but it was always kind of like based on a knowledge of that original
yeah,
tune.
yeah,
You know.
yeah, yeah. So that's fascinating. So do you have any more plans for a book 3 with your materials, or is book 2 is that
I,
book
I
2 it for now?
I want to, but I'm just trying to figure out what I want to do. Is I've written a whole bunch of solos, um, using techniques from the books, like on standards, and I want to create a book out of it.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I'm thinking
Yeah.
maybe I'll release them separately,
Yeah.
individually. And my
Yeah.
goal, it really isn't like, it's not like I want to try and bank on it, bank on it. It's just I want to put that information out there to get people intrigued with these books because I feel they can really help people out. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
give them a structure. Yeah.
So, okay, I want to have a little fun with you, Mark.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a little lightning round with you, man.
All right.
I'm going to throw out some kind of musical term, musical
Okay.
skill, and I
Yeah.
want you to address the listeners and tell them in a few sentences your do's and don'ts regarding this
Mm-hmm.
topic. Okay, so
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'll start off. I'll start off with an easy one for you. Easy. Development of
That makes me
time.
think. Yeah. Time. That's
Time.
so easy.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting. No, we no. How much time do we have?
we,
That
we,
it. Yeah.
so
The
time. The
development of
importance of time.
time.
Yes, time.
Well, here's the thing. I think most people have some inner decent sense of time. Now,
Yeah.
as a teacher, I've experienced some students that have a seemingly much stronger sense of time on the piano than others. But most of us, if we have, if we're able to, not, um, we can walk across the room with an even pace, or we can, you know,
Right. Right.
there's
Right.
certain
Right.
things we can do. They have it's part of life to have a consistent sense of time. The challenge is to put that into the instrument, and it requires a certain amount of fluency, or just being comfortable on the piano, not having to think about things that disrupt that natural flow.
Right.
And so a lot of times for students, I think, you know it might be they're trying to read and they can't read it, or they don't have something memorized completely, and things that get in the way of having good time. Like that good time is often in them, and they have to find a way to kind of like limit the the barriers. But as far as being more specifically about developing it, I mean, my thoughts on it have changed a little bit. I mean, I used to practice a lot with the metronome for decades, a lot.
Right.
And now I kind of question how much value there is to playing with a metronome. I think I like some of the new apps and things where you can play with drums, like Drum Genius. I love playing with that. I like having my students play with that because they can develop a sense of a feel, not just. I mean, as our listeners know, I mean, time is about consistency, but it's also about your feel. Are you on the beat? Are you behind the beat? Ahead of the beat?
Right.
And with a metronome, it's hard to practice that, or if not impossible.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Obviously, playing with real people is great. I saw that a quote. I forgot the trumpet player's name right now, but I have to look it up. But he said, learning to. I think he said, I may be misquoting him a little bit, but I'll get the basics of it. Learning to swing with a metronome is like learning to dance with a broomstick. Which means.
I love it. That's awesome. I'm stealing that, man. I'm using that.
I can find the source for you if you're curious, but later.
No, not really, because I'm going to claim it as my own.
But the point, the point to me is, like when we play with others, and we've all experienced this. Man, the drummer's dragging. Well, I can't just, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
Are you, or are they dragging? Or maybe I'm rushing. But it's figuring out how to get together time wise. Yeah. So the metronome is valuable, but I encourage any student to work with some like either recorded drums or ultimately get with real people.
I agree 100% because when we grew up, right, the only way we could test our skills and our time was the jam session, right? And you'd go out and you'd have to get up there and do your thing, and you'd find out real quick where you are with your sense of time and knowing tunes, and sometimes it could be very embarrassing. So I do think what you touched upon is spot on. I tell students all the time, whether you're using something like Band in the Box or some of the apps or software out there that can simulate the feel of real musicians, right?
Yeah.
At least you're placing the skills that you're working on within the context of time, so you can develop feel and articulation. And that's something that, I tell students that as a teacher, I can't teach you that. We can talk about time, but you have to experience it. You have to absolutely experience it. And you're right. The technology today allows you to do that. And I've often said that if some of my old teachers could come back to life and see the technology that we have, that a student can practice with today to develop time and feel and articulations and tunes, and they would equate that to like steroid abuse in baseball. They'd go like, are you
right.
Are you kidding me? And then they would turn around and say, man, I wish I would have had that, so I agree with you 100%, and I think time is something that should be front and centered from the beginning, right? I tell students, when you're playing an arpeggio or when you're playing a scale or whether you're playing,
that's something I do with the books.
Music.
If you're practicing chords, say you're trying to learn triads in all the keys, practice them in tempo. That's why I have people, always practice in tempo, because then it's like a real playing situation. And
correct. Right.
And that's something Barry Harris always talked about, was make your practice like a real playing situation. If your practice is this, but then when you go to play, it's completely different. Well, that doesn't make sense. It should be
correct. That's
fluid,
100%. 100%. Okay. Your thoughts. Let's talk about scale practice. What would you tell listeners about do's and don'ts of scale practice?
Another easy one, right?
Yeah. These are all easy.
Now, in terms of the instrument, I guess I'd have, there's just there's so many aspects of it. I always feel that technique has to be linked to good time. I mean, back to our other topic, if you're practicing scales, it should be linked to good time. Otherwise, they're virtually useless.
Correct.
So that would be the number one thing I would say. Now, there's different aspects of it. Ultimately, so it's, well, how are you? Are you playing even eighth notes? Cool, because maybe you're playing even eighth
Right.
note music.
Right.
Are you playing
Right.
a swing feel? Cool.
Right.
You should work on those different things. Technically, what is it that you're doing? I mean, in my teaching, I don't spend enormous amounts of time working on technique, although it's always something that's there. I mean, just with a lot of my students, but I do work on scales with students, a different technique. There was a technique that a classical teacher presented to me, and I've always practiced this way. And then I happened to be watching a Brad Meldau
Oh yeah.
video where he was teaching. It was an old one. It was kind of a grainy, fuzzy video. And I don't know. Maybe maybe every classical piano player does it. I mean, I don't really know. But I was going to try and switch to this. Is that going to switch cameras or no? Let me just see it. Or no? I was going to try, but maybe it's not going to go. You can turn the camera. But I'll just do it from here. But the concept would be like if I'm playing a major scale, as I go up. First of all, I start with students just gliding.
Oh, it's good. So good. That's a great point.
Gliding.
Yep.
Now, if I had the overhead, we could see the angle of the elbow. Like I find a lot of times as people go up the piano, they're reaching towards it, and then we can't get our thumb under. So it's always good to keep that in mind, especially when we're playing right-hand lines as a jazz 100%. Pianist. But the basic exercise would be I'd play my thumb, and then as soon as I play the second finger, I put my thumb under right away, quickly.
Yeah, right.
I don't wait. So I practice the scale this slow. Every time I play that second finger, the thumb is under very quickly. And there's a video of Meldau talking about this. I thought, well, yeah, that's what my teacher told me. Maybe everybody talks about that. I don't know, but I combine that with a kind of a relaxed approach to playing the piano. Trying to working with students to get that relaxed approach.
Yeah. With scale practice, it's interesting, right? I at North Texas, I studied with a classical pianist, Nina Lelchuk was her name, a Russian pianist, and did her bachelor's, master's, and doctorate at the Moscow Conservatory. So you kind of you know the intensity I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
And
I used to cry. I had a Russian piano teacher.
Oh my gosh, right? Very tough. Very, very tough. Yeah. And she was a big one on the hand, constantly gliding, what you were talking about, but always keeping the hand in its natural position. That she was a big one. Instead of thinking of thumb under, she was always saying shifting hand. The hand's constantly shifting. So there's no tension anywhere in the hand, right?
Was there thumb under or not so much?
No, not so much. In fact, she worked.
Yeah, I've seen that style.
Yeah, she worked relentlessly with me to get me out of that, So it's different approaches, right? But I'm curious about one thing that I teach with scales that I wish I would have had somebody show me when I was younger, because I think we all kind of grow up with the kind of the traditional classical approach to playing scales, where you play the C major scale from C to C. F major scale, F to F, and you do it like one octave or 2 octave or 3 octaves or whatever, 4 octaves. And I started practicing some time ago, and the way I teach scales with my students, I'm always encourage them, your entry point, your destination point must always be different. I want the ears to be actively engaged. So if you're going to play a C major scale, I want to hear it from C to B, so I hear that major 7 sound.
Yeah.
Or I want to go from 3rd to 9th, or 5th to the 11th, or 7th to the 13th. So I'm exploring the entire sound.
Yeah.
So I think that's helpful for students, because now the ears become. Because the ears, a lot of times, we practice in such a way. Haven't you found that I think we're all guilty of this. We practice in such a way that the ears kind of go on vacation. We just kind of going through motions, right? Especially with scale practice.
I also think that that practice should be to some degree improvisatory in that you vary things, so that it's not simply a routine that's the same all the time.
Right.
You know, and people do that with athletics too if they're training. I mean, you vary things because.
Great point.
You know,
great point.
It can be
Great
physically important to do that, but also mentally that you're.
Yeah.
And there's easy ways to challenge yourself with anything, but it could be, like we said before, practicing, you know, with a different feel, with a different kind of, you know, or practicing with you can practice in different meter. You can do all kinds of things. You know, they put a curveball on it.
Yeah. Okay. Another topic that I think students wrestle with quite a bit, and this topic, I'm telling you, even depending on what books you're looking at, it can become like fish. It can become like fishing line, tangled up very, very quickly. And that's the topic of voicings. I think the young jazz pianist trying to figure out how to voice on the piano so that they sound like a jazz pianist.
Yeah.
Give us your thoughts on voicings.
Yeah. Well, the books go through, you know, a certain system, you know, it's a system that I believe is the system that virtually all jazz pianists are using, even if whether they kind of realize it or not. But what I do is I have students when they're playing jazz, which jazz typically has seventh chords, so mapping out the thirds and sevenths, and I have people practicing shell voicings with these alternating sevenths.
Yeah,
but I have a system of adding, you know, like many of us do with rootless voicings and whatnot, of adding nines or 13s, nines and fives. In book 2, I've got like these introductory exercises that I have students work through that help to establish this. They go through 4-note voicing patterns that go around the cycle for the different chord qualities, and then we do it with 5-note chords, because part about voicings is just like trying to. I don't even know if there's a good analogy. Maybe you have one of like, what is this like, keeping track of all these voices and where they are and what they're doing and where they're going. You know, it's something that other instruments. Well, I mean, guitarists certainly might deal with it, but you know, it's a unique musical skill that we have to develop. And the other thing that I deal with quite a bit in my teaching is Barry's approach of the 6 diminished scales and chords, you know, and so like trying to develop that ability to play harmony that's more fluid, you know, where I can move harmonies around, you know, rather than this is a chord, but you know, if it's C major, moving, being able to move.
That's right.
So, I mean, that's an ultimate. You know, just talking generally, not getting too in depth here. What I work towards with harmony is trying to create a fluid sense of harmony. Yeah. Just like when we hear an orchestra, we don't hear, oh, they just played this chord and now the whole orchestra went to this chord. Sometimes we hear that. Sometimes we hear it, but it's weaving lines, and it's like, that's right. You know, and that's the goal. Yeah. I think ultimately is to get that kind of orchestral sound.
Yeah. Well, I think in your book 1, you addressed it really nicely, because I think the first order of business for any beginning jazz pianist is, man, get those basic block shapes, root, third, 5 and 7. I mean, if you can't see those, and if you can't see those in their inversions, then voicing is going to become a nightmare for you, because you don't have a handle of the foundation itself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's a lot to mentally keep track of. Yeah.
Right. And you lay that out nicely in your book. So, all right. So, voicings. All right. So now here's another easy one for you. You're all like, I'm throwing you softballs here, man.
No, they're good. I mean, and of course we could go on and on about these topics. I mean, maybe we'll have to get together again, and we'll pick out our favorite. Together. Yeah.
I would love to do that. What we'll do ahead of time is pick out, here's the topic. We're going to dive deep. We're going to drill down deep into it. That would be a lot of fun. Improvisation, right? Everybody, they're drawn the jazz. They're drawn to playing the jazz piano. They hear pianists improvising, embellishing melodies, embellishing tunes, and playing through changes effortlessly. And they want to do that, right? But then getting started with the improvisation process can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
So what do you do with students to kind of help kickstart that
Yeah.
process of getting their feet wet with improvising?
Yeah. And even though, this is kind of a fundamental question. It's a fundamental question for anyone who's going to try and help someone along.
Right.
It still seems to be a question that still is, I don't know if debated or has, of a lot of different opinions, I think. But
Mm-hmm.
at least when once you start getting to a little bit more. Now, I'm definitely an advocate of because I work with a lot of kids and adults who are improvising for the first time, is you got to get your foot in the door somehow. What can you
Right.
do that's going to be fun, and you're having some success, and you feel like, hey, this sounded pretty good. This sounded almost better than I thought it would. So
Mm-hmm.
working with blues scales or pentatonic scales and things like that. I think those are great ways to get started. As
Right.
far as like the improviser who's like, maybe they have, maybe they've been improvising a bit, but they want to get to that next level, if we want to use that term, which
Right.
is kind of vague.
Right.
But say my feeling is to give students very specific things to play. Like
Yeah.
like I believe in giving them some background on what it is, but as you'll see in the books, I give students very specific things to play, whether it be a specific kind of jazz arpeggio, whatever it might be,
Right.
short phrases that we
Right.
generally refer to as vocabulary or language in the
Right.
music.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm definitely an advocate of getting people to have a foundation where they can be fluent. And I mean, it's the it's that the old analogy that jazz is like a language, and I truly believe it is. There was actually kind of an interesting workshop that took place at the Jazz Education Network conference in New Orleans this past January, where someone was saying, "Hey, jazz is not a language," and sort of pushing back about how much should
Yeah.
someone transcribe. And he's a notable professor and an accomplished player and someone I like a lot, but um, just interesting to start thinking about, well, kind of questioning those things. But I've always found that, like, if we can start emulating things we hear, and we might get to that point where it's transcribing or, but I think
Mm-hmm.
that's an important step in terms of like hearing something and being able to express it on the instrument.
Yeah. Right.
So
Right.
when you have to hear something on a recording and then you have to play
Right.
it back,
Right.
I find with my students that sometimes is the magical turning point for them. And it's like, even though you've inputted these different ingredients into their system of, you know, some knowledge, all of a sudden things start to come together for
Yeah.
them
Right. Right.
sometimes.
Right.
So I'm
You
an
know,
advocate for that.
yeah. It's interesting. I had a teacher that I remember I was like 14 years old, right? And I'm going to try to
Uh-huh.
improvise. And so we took a C major chord, C major 7, and he gave
Yeah.
me the note E, the third.
Uh-huh.
And he said, "Now," he said, and he had two pianos in the room, and he said, I'm going to walk a bass line. You play the C major 7 in your left hand, and I want you to play something rhythmically with that note E.
Oh
Improvise
yeah.
with the note E." I
Yeah.
went like, "Okay." And I was really intimidated. I was scared, I didn't know what to do. And
Yeah.
I said to him, can I have more than one? Can I have more? Can I have more than one note, for heaven's sakes? I need more in my arsenal to be creative.
Right.
And I remember he said, can you improvise with one note? And I said, uh, uh, no. And he goes, well, then you think adding a second one's going to make it easier, and a third one or a fourth one?
Right.
And I said, well, you got a point. But what was really interesting was he broke me through that barrier with
Mm.
taking a single note and
Yeah.
me doing something rhythmically with that note, with space and
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
right? With
Yeah.
that chord. And I
Yeah.
can remember leaving that lesson at 14 years of age. I can
Hmm.
remember leaving it and going like, man, I think I could do this, man. This is like, I
That's
get it.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so in
I
other
mean,
words, it doesn't
yeah.
have to be complicated.
No, it's got to be a foot in the door, right?
Right. Like
Gotta get your foot in the door. Gotta get your foot in the door somehow. Yeah.
Right.
And yeah, like I said, I work with students of different instruments, and it's usually the adults that are a little bit more scared of improvisation, or sometimes the accomplished classical players. Are sometimes. I've had students where they're that's scarier. Whereas to me, scary is put this music in front of you and you have to play this perfectly every night. Like that's scarier for me.
Right. That's
but for them, hey, that's a piece of cake. It's just when so it's a mindset is the other thing. And I don't always literally say this to students, but I think anybody has to realize and we know, just that it's a process. We're never really trying to sound good, or especially as a student. I mean, I know we are, but I try and let people know that you're just experimenting. It's like
right.
It's like you got some paint in different colors and you're just experimenting. Right. And nobody gets hurt. We're not teaching parachuting. If we goof up, nobody's and there's no record of it. I mean, you hit a lousy note, no one remembers, or you just move on. That's kind of the beautiful thing about music.
Yeah. It's fascinating. So,
yeah.
Well, listen, man. This is you and I could go literally. We could go on all day.
I know we could. Well, we'll have to do it again.
Yeah, I would love to have you back, Mark. I think what would be really fascinating is that you and I put our heads together next time and maybe pick one of these topics and actually put together a discussion that drills deeper into that specific topic. I think, and we could maybe do a whole series on different topics. It would be a great it would be great fun, and I think it would be beneficial for so many listeners. Yeah, let's definitely do it. So, okay, so listen, I'm going to post all the stuff out there so all the listeners can get in touch with you. But Milwaukee Jazz Institute.org, is that correct?
That's it.
Awesome, man. And I want to encourage everybody to go to you. What's your personal website address? Because I want everybody to go check you out. It's
personal website is markdavismusic.com.
Yeah.
And that's Mark with a K, M-A-R-K.
Yeah. And that's got videos of you performing and recordings of you performing out there. And it's fantastic, man. Listen, it's been a thrill to have you on today. And on behalf of all the Jazz Piano Skills listeners, a huge, gigantic thank you, my friend. Oh, my pleasure. And I hope we'll keep the dialogue going. Absolutely. So thanks, Mark. And we'll be back on Jazz Piano Skills here again together soon. Sounds good, Bob. All right. Take care.